What's up, guys and gals? Iceman here. Welcome to Chilling Tales. Appreciate you all for coming by. Like this video if you will, subscribe to the page, and pull that bell so you're notified next time I post a video. And blessings to my patrons. Links in the description below. So this story is so horrid that I just had to do it justice. All right. I'm going to keep this guy's last name under wraps because I don't know how Brett feels about this whole situation at this point. This attack took place around 2017, not too far from Yellowstone. Now, I haven't been there, but I do intend to visit one of these days, and I will post some videos of my adventure on this channel, so stay tuned to that. But there was a young female by the name of Amalia, and she lived not far from Yellowstone. She was about 26 years old at the time of the attack. Now, Amalia was interesting, to say the least. She was on the spectrum, if you will, but she was still quite socially functional. She could drive a car. Granted, she got her license a bit late. I think she was about 18 years old when she got her driver's license. Never went to college. She was the only child. Her parents had her very late. I believe her mother was 46 years old or so when she had her, which may have attributed to her condition. Now, I'm not an expert in these fields, but I'm just stating it as it is, with a bit of my interjection in terms of my hypothesis as to why this attack, this rampant grizzly rage attack, went the way that it did. So Amalia never went to college. She graduated high school. She just worked odd jobs and took care of her parents who were struggling a lot. I don't want to get into the details, but there was a lot of alcohol use going on at the home, and narcotics, pain medicines, and so forth. Her mother was in a severe car wreck. She was addicted to those damn pills. She was the only child, Amalia, and she would often venture out into the woods, singing to the animals, chirping to the birds, twirling about like a little Disney princess or something. There was a sort of innocence about her that I would think those around her found captivating. Have you ever met anyone like that before? Just who was someone who was kind of special, someone who had perhaps a trust in the world and the things around them that wasn't necessarily justified by nature or by what many can observe. A sort of innocence, a sort of joy in just being. I think that's part of what Brett saw in her. So Brett was about 32 years old, 33 years old when he met her. You guys ever hear those pickup artist guys on YouTube? They go around and they'll flirt with women. They'll study the psychology of women or whatever. There might be some merit to it, but nonetheless, these guys go around, introduce themselves to, in some cases, vulnerable women. And of course, we all know what guys want. So they're just kind of out there trying to increase their notch numbers. And Brett was making his rounds in the town nearby. And he went into that hardware store. And there was Amalia all by herself at the register. Now, Amalia was thin, about 5'7" or so, pale skin, bright, vibrant, blue eyes. I think her hair was kind of reddish or something. I don't know, but generally speaking, she was considered to be quite attractive. And the look on her face was a bit telling. There was this sort of it was hard to explain the look in her eyes. Like she was almost living in a different world. One that was more innocent. Which I think is why she had a few episodes where she would take risks. But she was lucky until that horrid day. There was a time when she was like 18, 19 years old, venturing out into Yellowstone all on her own, and she saw a grizzly cub with its mother. And I think there were 2 other cubs around. And of course, she knelt down and would sing to them and whistle and hum. "Come here. You can trust me." Things like that. And reached out her arm to it. And that little bear, the story goes anyway, I could almost see it happening. From the things I've observed, you guys know that I've researched a lot of bear attacks on this channel, the behavior of these animals and so forth. But this young grizzly was very hesitant. It was kind of like what you would see in the Grizzly Man Timothy treadmill video reels. There's like this shot of him reaching out his hand, "Come here, come here, come here," and the little bear just like is really hesitant with its head down, and then it perks up. You got to be careful when bears have their head down like this. Generally, they're going to attack you. That's not a bluff charge. A bluff charge, they often have their ears up like this, and they'll dodge, they'll run towards you, stomp on the ground, back their jaws, and then they'll blast off at the last second. Because to an extent, they are self-preservationists, these animals. You know, they don't want to get into a scuffle. They generally want to avoid them. I mean, younger ones that are males sometimes do just want to get in scuffle, and I've seen this with black bears. Especially, the males can be very rogue and dangerous, almost looking to pick a fight because they want to prove their dominance in their surroundings. And sometimes this happens with humans. They want to rule the land around them. They want to get a mate. They want to be strong, confident. So I've seen this occur. You guys got to watch out for those black bears as well. It's unbelievable. I live in Michigan and they're quite abundant here. But there was that episode and the bear was just so hesitant around this young, vulnerable woman. And its mother must have been shocked by the situation. And it's perhaps a miracle that the mother didn't attack Amalia, because often that would be the case. I think the mother, according to my understanding and what I would theorize, is that the sow in that incident knew that there was something wrong with that young human. Now, I don't mean that in an offensive manner, of course. There was something wrong in that she wasn't trying to be a threat. She was genuinely curious and genuinely interested and genuinely innocent. And I would wage that the sow could almost perceive this based on the young woman's body language and persona. But fortunately, the cub ended up running back to its mom. Amalia stood up, brushed her legs off, and went on. She would tell this story to her friends, to her family, and of course she was warned to stay away from the animals, but she just wouldn't listen. So Brett sees this young woman at the register, and he goes up to her. I don't know exactly how the conversation went, but he sort of flirted with her. Brett, he was ambitious, driven. He was a bad boy. Perhaps to an extent by his own making. He would rub that testosterone stuff on his shoulders, the gel, really getting his drive and energy up. He had these tattoos running up his neck, his tattoos running, these sleeves running down his arms. He was a bad boy. Tight black shirt, skater shoes, those Converse things or whatever. But I mean, these details aren't all that important. I'm just trying to give you guys a good visualization of what went down here. So he had his discussion with Amalia and managed to get her number. She's only had 1 or 2 boyfriends at this point. One of which I think was in high school. She was an interesting one to try and date. I think. I mean, I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to get into those details. I mean, Brett was out there for no good. All right. And I don't think he had good intentions with this lady. I don't think he visualized her as a potential marriage partner or whatever, you know? I mean, my assumption is he just kind of wanted to take advantage of her. And add her to the list. Maybe keep her on the string for a while. But leave her be as she aged or as he got or grew sick of her. Now, I don't know the details into what happened from then to the incident, other than he met her parents once or twice. She lived with her parents. So did he. I think he was on tether during this time. He got in a bit of trouble with the law, never really held a good job. But he was a sort of playa at heart and in his mentality, a sort of confidence that wasn't really backed by competence, which I think sort of stirred up the illusionary, deceptive attraction that Amalia presumably saw in him, because she did go forward with spending time with him and hanging out with him. Nonetheless, he wanted to go on a camping trip with her. He wanted to get her in a tent. All right. I mean, maybe I shouldn't make so many assumptions in this video. I mean, like I said, I'm not going to give his last name. And maybe he won't see this video. I don't know. If he does, you know, I'm just giving the information that I know. All right. And yeah, I kind of think that he's a piece of shit. All right. I wouldn't want my daughter dating him. I mean, I don't have a daughter. But if I did, I sure as hell wouldn't. I don't know what the hell was going on with their parents as to why they allowed for this. Because to an extent, they did have control. Amalia would often consent to their demands. But they allowed for it. I mean, maybe she lied to him. Maybe she said she was going camping with her girlfriend or something. I don't know. But I assume he was trying to get the girl alone in a damn tent. So they start venturing out into Yellowstone. A little supplies, this and that. She's dancing around, smelling the flowers, picking things. She picked something up, told Brett about it. I can't remember what it was at this point. He smelled, he was kind of acting interested, but he wasn't that interested in the flowers, in the scenery. And they made it out there. I don't think they even set up their tent. They took notice to this massive heap, about 100 yards off, this mother hump all up in the air, kind of head low, just sort of observing these young adults. And Amalia took notice to 2 cubs. She said something like, "Oh, Brett, I have something to show you. Come on." So she began walking toward them with her arms out. And of course, Brett at this point, I think, well, he was extremely hesitant, reasonably so. He didn't want anything to do with these bears. To my understanding, he told her no. He told her to get back. And he followed her, but only a few yards. And then he stopped and watched to witness what was about to occur. So Amalia knelt down, began calling to the bears. The cubs were scared. You know, they were standing up, looking around, looking at their mother, looking at the girl, kind of their ears back, get back down to the ground. They're like, what the hell is going to happen here? We've never seen this before. We've never seen a human act this way, especially around mommy. Amalia began approaching them as the animals were trying to walk away. Then they started making their way up the hillside. And Amalia, that's when she began jogging toward them. Just sort of prancing toward them, looking back at Brett. Come on, Brett. This and that. Somewhere in that episode, the mother had enough. It circled around her and bluff charged her once. Amalia stood her ground and began approaching it again. She just must have thought it was going to go like what it did last time, where she was able to touch the cub at the nose, and the mother left her alone. But it circled around once after a bluff charge. And Amalia sort of just stood there and watched it. And she began jogging toward it again, or prancing toward it, sort of in a dancing fashion. Her little dress floating around like a little, like Mary Poppins or something. It's just crazy that this had to go the way that it did. Brett yells to her, Amalia, no! Amalia, get back! Stop! I'm leaving! But she paid no attention. I mean, I don't know if she had sort of an inkling to not listen to other figures of authority, if you will. You know, I don't know. I mean, maybe she didn't want to listen to him, you know? I mean, she was probably taught to an extent, oh, you can't listen to no man, this and that, you know? Like, she did go to the public schools, and to an extent, that's reasonable. But when it comes to these sort of situations where she was putting herself in danger, let me know, is it reasonable? I mean, should you not listen to him just because he's a guy? Let me know in the comments below. But I don't know if that was her inkling to keep going, to keep approaching these things. You know, the guy tried to tell her what to do, all right? I mean, you guys know I'm not a big fan of Brett. But even I can perceive this in a reasonable way. Or maybe you should listen to them. You don't want to listen to your mom and dad. You don't want to listen to your girlfriend who told you to stay away from the bears. But you know what? Maybe I'm going on too much about this. Whatever. So, the Bear Bluff charged her. Brett starts yelling to her. Says he's going to leave. I don't know if he started walking away at that point or not. But he turns around again and he sees the bear on top of the girl. Now, the mother bear, when it attacks you, she wants to make sure that you're neutralized, right? They're not like tigers or cougars or lions where they go for your neck. They just try to kill you. Bears are so powerful. They just begin digging into you like you're a log or something. And they'll grab you by your extremities. They'll toss you around. They'll wave you around. They'll slam you back into the ground. They'll rip into your flesh. They'll start pulling you apart. And this mother was digging into her like she was a log, like she was looking for bugs or something. Just, they're massive claws. They're going to be 6 inches long. Yeah. These bear claws, these black, bacteria-ridden, yellowish claws, just unbelievable. And she just began digging into her, just grabbing her by the shoulder, slamming her into the ground. And the cubs are sitting there watching this whole thing. And Amalia didn't know to play dead. In that situation, I mean, like I said, I'm not like I didn't go to school for this, all right? I mean, I think it's common knowledge. According to what I've read from the experts, and I've heard from them, you generally want to play dead if a mother bear is attacking you. She just wants to neutralize the damn target and get away, right? If it's like a male who's hungry or something, or in some cases a female who's hungry, it's a different story. You might want to fight back. But your first form of defense, if a mother attacks you and her cubs are around, if it's a grizzly or a brown bear, this might not work the same with a black bear. If a black bear attacks you, it's for other reasons. They're probably hungry. They're very opportunistic. That's why they dig through garbages and everything else. They just eat whatever they can. But if a mother does this, you probably want to play dead. As long as you stop moving when she's ripping you around, because they'll stop and pay attention to you for a minute. They get tired. You know, sit there, just panting, just drool oozing from its mouth. It'll look over at you. You know, just make sure that you're not going to threaten the cubs anymore. And if it sees you go like, oh, like budge around, it thinks you're going to get back up. So it's just going to just attack you again, dig into you again. But this bear, it did a number on this girl. It broke so many bones in her frail, thin body. Massive gashes across her face, chest. She was just wearing some thin dress. Her skin was just exposed and just, it dug through her and into the ground in some sections. And her skin was just so pale and white. The blood, the contrast. It was disgusting. It looked like a rototiller went through the scene. Just one of those things where you dig your garden, just digs into the ground, just those big grinders just digs into the dirt. I mean, that's what happened with this Amalia. Now, I don't know if Brett yelled at the bear. Did he run at it? Did he try to... I don't think he got close to it. I'm pretty sure he turned and ran. He knew that it was hopeless. Now, these two didn't have any form of protection on them, which he should have known better. Where the hell's the bear spray? You know, where the hell is the hand cannon? Now, I think he was broke. I'm not trying to be mean here, but I think he was broke. I mean, come on, he lived with his parents. He was on tether. He violated who knows how many laws and got caught for some of them. I don't think he worked a job. I mean, hell, his perception of reality was probably altered as well. Just sustaining on safety nets, be it from the government, society, be it from his parents. He was just chilling. All right. So his perception of reality was probably off as well, but not as much as hers. He made it back to their vehicle. They never camped that night, obviously. He called the authorities. They discovered her mangled, mutilated body. I don't think any of her extremities were missing. The bear didn't try to eat her. It just ripped her seemingly to pieces. Her body was like half buried into the ground. You could just see these massive gashes going across her chest, ripping through all of her, just the cloth on her dress, and into the dirt. It's like Wolverine from X-Men or something, just whooshing. It was disgusting. I don't think they could really figure out what bear did it. There were several in the area. Mothers and their cubs. But what a nightmare. But anyway, that's sort of how that story went. And I mean, how do you think Brett would feel from all this? How do you think her parents would feel? How would you feel if you were her parents? Or her boyfriend? I mean, they shouldn't have tolerated this guy. But at the end of the day, I think many would argue it's not necessarily his fault. Is it the fault of the parents? Should they have been more in control of themselves and of their family? I don't know. I mean, I think they were dealt some bad cards in life. But it's just, I mean, I guess some would say it's survival of the fittest. Weeding others out. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below if you will. And like this video, subscribe to the page, and I'll see you soon with more chilling tales from the Iceman.